Ain't nothing but a heartache. Yeah, I've got no idea how else to start these videos. Hi, it's Jack, and I've played the second episode now of Tell Me Why. The video's going out a little later than I wanted to, but hey ho, that's just how life is. I've also got some lights up, so I'm not squashed in the corner anymore trying to get the sunlight, so yay! I'm still playing around with, like, setups and everything, so we'll see how things go. So tell me why. Overall, I'm still quite pleased with the game. It's still shockingly good, or surprisingly good, or better than I was expecting it to be. Still with that little asterisk though, things could go wrong, but this is possibly my favourite Don't Nod game, like, in a long time. I am so enamoured with the Ronan twins. I genuinely think that they might be the best written Don't Nod characters possibly ever. I still have like quibbles and stuff, but they are presented so strongly, so thoughtfully, and I'm really just invested in the story in which these two are unfolding. I absolutely love that. As I said, there's still some shakiness that I think is just going to come with the territory at this point, but there's a good idea here and they are seeing it through. I am very pleased with these games. I am so happy and I'm so looking forward to seeing more. I am excited to see episode 3. So, like, my non-spoilery thoughts, like, in depth, I don't think this is going to be, like, as long a video because this is definitely the middle episode, you know? We pick up the mystery of episode 1 and we basically work most of the way through resolving that while also setting up episode 3 so that we're stuck with this kind of thing which doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't really have an end, it's just there. It is the connective tissue between our big cell and our big finale. It happens all the time in like trilogies and stuff, so it's fine for it to just be in the middle, setting up episode 3 while also resolving a few questions from episode 1. That's okay, we can keep going on, it's absolutely fine. I will say that this episode felt longer than episode 1, which is weird, and I think that mostly comes down to some really bad pacing. Like, we are doing things for a lot longer than we possibly need to. I think I played for like 4 or 5 hours this chapter, and what made it feel longer is the fact that they felt the need to put in like busy work. Like, we start off and we're like putting notes on things to say whether we're going to sell it or keep it or destroy it when we're moving house and stuff, and it felt like kind of unnecessary. I get it's like meant to put us in their shoes and what they're doing, but I don't think there's going to be like major consequences coming from this. And it's fine to like put it in there just so we can get into their shoes, but it went on a bit. It went on a lot. And then you make us do more busy work later by making us help out in the shop storeroom, take inventory. And at that point I was like, okay, we're going on a bit, aren't we? There's like other stuff being set up there as well, but when I was wondering when this episode was going to end, and that's probably not a good sign. Like, when I'm wondering when it's going to end, when I'm looking at my watch. Don't get me wrong, I did like this episode. I was very enamoured with like what was being presented. I was also just kind of exhausted by the end. But I do genuinely love the Ronan twins. Tyler and Allison are just great together. They genuinely have some chemistry. And I think that comes with them being believable siblings. Specifically, believable siblings who fight. These two just disagree a lot, and they will like yell at each other and have like these little, just petty squabbles. They are believable, genuinely believable siblings, and I love that. I love that because it makes them feel really human, and it really shows off how different they are. Like I mentioned in the previous video, it feels like Tyler's gone through a lot of therapy and Allison doesn't, and that shines through even more with this episode. And in fact, you can like pin down just how they've been able to deal with things in this episode. like the big trauma, Tyler's clearly like confronted it and faced it, and he feels really good about it, while Allison still lived in the town. Like, and it feels like she's been kind of just avoiding everything now. I felt like I was able to pin that down in this episode. She's just been distancing herself from this trauma. She doesn't want anything to do with that. And then there's Tyler, who's like, oh, I've been confronting it. What's wrong with you? Well, let's do it. Which, considering he was meant to be a counselor, he's been a little bit cold to her. But you know what? We're getting dangerously close to spoiler territory here. So let's move on from that. Yeah, I'm still not sold on the actual game part of the game, which is like the choices and stuff. They feel like I'm just picking like moral binary choices, whether I want to be a nice person or a nasty person. Because every time I'm like picking something, I'm like seeing in the corner, oh, this is bringing you two together, or oh, it's splitting you two apart. And I don't see really how it can benefit us if we're like apart. So I'm basically just picking the good choice is bringing us together, the bad choice is splitting us apart. I kind of feel like we don't need that notification. It would be better if we didn't. If there was just like something where like, oh, you've made a major choice, like the screen flashes or something like that, that'd be great. But because we're seeing almost like good choice and bad choice, it's making it feel cheap. And it's also making it feel weird, like, oh, that's a nasty choice, that's bringing you two apart. When I'm flirting with a guy, that's weird. It doesn't make sense sometimes, and I really don't know why it has to be like that. But look at me brushing up against spoilers again. And I guess really the last thing about gameplay, we have more puzzles this time. We have 3 of them instead of 1, baby. One's like the puzzle in the first episode where you need to use the book. There's another puzzle straight away, which is like so easy you could even not call it a puzzle. And then there's the third puzzle, which is basically her story. I don't know if you've ever played Her Story, but it is just her story. Like all the way through. And that's about it for like episode 2's non-spoilery discussion. I have no idea how to talk about this game without getting into spoilers at this point. Like, episode 1, fine, it's the intro, but episode 2, we've got baggage to take care of, people. So last week there was a comment in the video that said that if you read the book, people are noticing that possibly the animal characters are analogous to characters in the actual town. And I thought that was really interesting, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I still haven't read that book, by the way. I'm not reading all the way through that. I'll read what's relevant at the time. And episode 2 just confirms this, like, less than half an hour in. We assign people who they are in this book and try and work things out from there. Like, the bear is Sam, and the moose is Eddie, that sort of thing. And also, the Mad Hunter is someone. The Mad Hunter is Daddy! We almost completely resolved the Marianne mystery in this episode. She was not transphobic, she was struggling to make ends meet, and she had, like, distanced herself from everyone by basically stealing and engaging in, like, some really toxic behaviour, to the point where child services had to be called, and she was not happy about that. No one was really happy about that, but, you gotta think about the kids. And then she must have gone mad after all of that and chased us with a shotgun. Or did she? Because now we found out that the Mad Hunter represents an actual person, and it's Daddy. And guess who was there that night? It was Daddy. And that just throws the whole thing of Mom wanted to kill us right out the window. We don't know what that night was about now. And Daddy's desperately trying to cover his tracks, as we saw in the end. He tries to burn down the barn with some evidence in it. Oh boy, we have just gone Twin Peaks now. This is a Twin Peaks, like, side B plot. This is like season 2 Twin Peaks, the kind of one you want to fast forward through. Oh dear, I said I didn't want this to happen. No, you know what? No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was dreading last time because I saw those missing person photos and I thought, oh, there's going to be a greater conspiracy to all this. And while there sort of is, it's not on the level of, like, who killed Laura Palmer, which is fine. That's okay. We're not going full Twin Peaks. We're like half Twin Peaks right now. That's fine. We'll see how that plays out there, because the identity of Daddy is still up in the air, and Daddy's clearly, like, doing things. He burned down that barn to hide his tracks. What does that mean? What's Daddy going to do to protect his identity? He's like a soap opera villain. As I said, it's kind of like a season 2 of Twin Peaks plotline, but no one's getting brain damage and turning into a high school cheerleader yet, so that's fine. That's good. But to get back into the twins, because I really, 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 really like how the twins are being done in this series. I genuinely do. This is the best writing that Don't Nod has, and, you know, they've clearly put a lot of work and effort into getting this to be genuine and real, and I love it. I absolutely love it. At the end, when you just see the two twins at odd, you see that Allison cannot deal with the old scenario. There's just so much unresolved trauma there, and she just cannot continue. Whereas Tyler's absolutely fine with it. Tyler's had therapy. Tyler has confronted this problem, whereas Allison hasn't. Tyler was sent to Fireweed basically as a sort of punishment, but in the end, he's turned out pretty well from it. He has confronted his trauma, he has faced his fears, and he has, like, resolved in, like, this idea of what it was all about, what it meant. He has had the therapy, he's confronted the trauma, he is doing good about it, and that means he's able to, like, face it. Allison stayed behind. Allison stayed in the town and basically just had to avoid everything forever. She just didn't have to confront it, don't think about it, don't go there, and so everything feels like a big step for her, to the point where we get to the end and she doesn't want to relive this. She knows she's going to have to relive this, and she just can't do it. And it kind of brings up the question of, like, why Tyler is being so, like, annoyed with her. Like, he's being very, very unsympathetic about this, which is nuts considering he was meant to be a sort of counselor at Fireweed. Oh, great empathy skills there to your own sister about an event you've already had, like, counseling for? What? But you even see with Allison how her recollections of that night are different. Like, right at the start, we just get, like, these little flashes going, like, between events on that night. And, like, they are patchy, they are, like, scary, they are terrifying. Everything's just sort of, like, weighing on Allison in that moment. And it doesn't play out the same as, like, how Tyler remembers it either, which is, like, the one difference, which I kind of like, but there's no choice attached to it, so that mechanic's still stupid. I don't think we actually see Allison stab Mom with the scissors, which is very interesting, because they didn't find those scissors in the police reports. We see that when we were doing the Her Story puzzle, and just, like, going through all the evidence in the archives. And yeah, those scissors aren't found, so I think we can almost guarantee that Allison did not actually stab Mom. Mom fell in because she was already injured, and Allison just internalized it of, I killed Mom because I'm a stupid kid and I don't know any better. Or, you know, trauma. I could be a bit more fair. I could be a bit more fair to the poor kid who just watched her mother fall in the water and drown, I guess. And that's, like, the main bread and butter of this whole thing. There's, like, other stuff that happened in this episode, but it doesn't feel as important. There's, like, stuff we're going to do afterwards, like, we're talking about, like, getting roommates in this, like, university, and Michael wants us to come with, and really digs us. We were totally flirting in that storeroom, but it doesn't feel as big and as important as the Mom plotline, and that's basically all I wanted to talk about here. And while there was a lot resolved, it feels like we've gone over it very quickly so that we can set up the final episode where everything's going to come out. Daddy, everything. As I said, I do still have some criticisms. The choices themselves are very stupid. They are just binary good, bad choices, essentially. And, like, with the memories, I'll tell you something with the memories, right? I feel like I am incentivized to always pick the memory of the person I'm not playing as. I remember, like, in the first episode, the specific words are, Tyler felt supported when you chose his memories. And that's weird, because now I feel like I just discount my own memories and always pick the other person just so that I can support them and bring the twins closer together. If I pick my own memories, well, I'm just being selfish. I'm not remembering it right. I'm being stubborn or something. It feels weird. I'm not sold on it. Maybe there'll be a big one in the final episode and that'll change what ending we get, but I don't know. We'll see. And again, while I'm praising the writing for being good for Tyler and Allison, it's also sometimes very spotty. And actually, the spottiest part for me was the big moment with Tyler and Allison, which is when we go to the graveyard. So we finally go see Mary Ann's grave, and it's meant to be this big emotional moment where they just break down. They're like asking her why she did this, why she did all this. Like, this is the first chance they've really like gotten to ask her now that they've fully come to terms with what happened. And it feels really hokey. I'm sorry, but it does. Like, they just break down immediately and they are just basically screaming at this grave, like in the middle of a graveyard. They don't do this silently. They are very loud. They are very dramatic about it. And it feels like a bit much too soon. There's no like build up to it. It just sort of, here's the grave, let's cry now. And maybe I wouldn't feel this way, but there's a really awkward line where Tyler will say Allison's name when he finds it, and then immediately go into like the questioning, and I thought he was talking to Allison. So I was like, wait, what? And it took like a few seconds for my brain to go, oh, no, wait, he's not talking to Allison, he's talking to the grave. Oh, okay. And I think that maybe made the transition a little more jarring than it like could have been. But I'm not a big fan of that sequence anyway. That felt like, oh, we've got this like genuine feeling like thing with the kids and them dealing with their trauma, and then we turn into like something like really hokey and dramatic. It turns into a soap opera again. It's Twin Peaks. It's not quite Laura Palmer's dad going up and down on the grave like as it's being lowered in, like crying his eyes out. But we're not 100 miles away from that. There's also another line, like early on in the game. I picked Tyler's memory in that first section. Yes, Eddie was the one being the aggressor, fine, so Tyler feels supported. But then we go into the car and we have a fight, and at one point Tyler says, "You never support me." I just did! I just supported you! What the hell are you on about? It feels flippant and kind of out of character, and like, oh, if you're just going to write this anyway, why do my choices even matter? And while I am kind of smug about how I was totally right about Daddy, it feels kind of rushed into the story. So it gets first introduced when we're talking to Tom. We're looking for Tessa, but hey, Tom's here, so why don't we go for that? And Tyler just blurts out questions about like who their father is, and it's out of completely nowhere. We have not even mentioned the father yet, because I guess we needed to set up Daddy quickly and we didn't have a good chance to do it. And then the game has the audacity to call attention to that. It just dunks a big lampshade on that by Allison asking Tyler, why did you just bring up Daddy like that? And Tyler's like, oh, I don't know. I just felt like it was the right thing to do. I was like, that is ropey right there. I get you want to get this mystery, but there's a much more organic ways you can bring that up. Like, this whole game is good. This is a good game. But then Don't Nod are also just their worst enemies, and just, we're so shaky right now. We are very, very shaky. This thing could all fall apart in this next episode, and then I'll never want to think about this thing again. That section does feel like cut content, like something was cut along the lines and they needed to like just patch this in, just bring it in as best they could. And sure, I guess if the ends justify the means, then fine. And my biggest criticism, my biggest condemnation of this episode, on the results screen for the choices I made, it says I accepted Michael's compliment. What? I accepted it, but we were doing more than just that. We were flirting. We were straight up flirting, and I reciprocated. Why do you say accepted Michael's compliment? It feels like a euphemism, and it's strange. You can just say we were flirting. It's very, very explicitly gay, but you're, like, walking around it? Why? When you're doing all this? It is really, really weird. I do not get it at all. So yeah, I guess I better wrap this up with some more rampant speculation. Firstly, the results on my theories, I'm doing pretty well on them, I think. I was right on the madness being a red herring. Absolutely right on that. I mean, if Daddy's there, then she did not snap. That is just basic. We can guarantee that now. Mom did not mentally snap. Daddy was there and she was looking to protect herself, and the children are just remembering it wrong. I was sort of right on that, like, Dad being the cause of it, but he may not have been abusive. He just maybe, you know, he just maybe didn't want to, like, claim responsibility for the children. So, okay. But he was being a dick to her on, like, the landing jetty, so I get, like, half a point on that. And we're only half Twin Peaks right now, which is good. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to get that wrong, because that was the one thing I didn't want to happen. So, good. Thank you. And there's no point, I think, in making, like, speculation or theories outside of the big thing, which is Daddy. So who is Daddy? That's the big question right now. It's implied that Marianne was, like, sleeping around with a lot of guys, and so it's almost feeling like, oh, anyone could be the father. Everyone's a suspect. And that's okay. Well, we can rule out Sam, you know, just based on the build of this guy. Sam is not that guy. We were told to get information from Sam by Tessa, but that just feels like a total red herring now. But I guess it's a lead on this investigation. The guy also doesn't really sound like anyone else from the town, and that's interesting. But that could just be misleading. The game just might not want to give its game away by having someone sound distinct and instantly recognizable. So who is this guy? From the sounds of things, he is someone with power, someone with status who has something to lose if it's discovered that he's been philandering with Marianne. So okay, I feel like that narrows it down to Eddie and Tom, or some third character who we've never met. Out of Eddie and Tom, I feel like Eddie is the only one that really makes sense, just because Tom isn't as well developed. There is so much unresolved stuff with Eddie. Like, we go into his office and we find out that he's, like, lied to Allison about getting into that camp. That's kind of weird. He apparently has, like, kept this letter around for, what, 11 years? And it's just lying there on his desk? I suppose you could say he recently brought it out, but why has he kept it anyway? Why has he kept this incriminating evidence with him? Although, saying that, there's some notes over there. Yeah, I've still got, like, episode notes from, like, before the storm here. Oh my god, this is episode 1. I've kept this for like 3 years. What do they say about glass houses and throwing stones? Go nuts? And he's also like hiring people who have like previous convictions for the police department. That's kind of weird. There's like stuff that wasn't brought up in that conversation and it feels unresolved. So the fact that it could be Eddie, yeah, maybe. Wouldn't that have been brought up when the whole child services thing was going down? It's strange. I really think it's strange. So I don't know, it doesn't feel like totally like watertight, but I don't think that Thomas really fits at all. I mean, unless there's going to be like some massive twist, like in Life is Strange, where the character you thought was nice and underdeveloped is actually very nasty and mean and is going to tell you all his deep dark secrets in a spooky basement. Oh god. Oh god, please don't do this again. But as I said earlier, it might be a completely unrelated third character. And if it is, my money's on the mayor. Thomas is running for election, but, like, there's got to be someone currently the mayor. So, who? And if it is the mayor, I think it fits, you know. Someone who would lose something if it turns out they've just been philandering around. Someone who, you know, could theoretically be seen as a good figure to take the kids away from her. My one problem with that is that we have not really heard about the mayor. I don't know if there's, like, documents I could have found that I maybe missed about the mayor, but, you know, it's something. Actually, is Thomas the mayor? No, he's running for election, not re-election. Right? I don't know. I think we're all going to be very surprised when the third episode rolls around, and whatever happens, happens. And yeah, I'm just hoping that it's not going to be anything completely stupid, and it's just going to undermine the entire game. I have faith? I guess I don't, if I'm going to say it like that. I hope it's not going to do that, and if they keep up the good parts of the writing, it's not, and we're all going to be happy. But whatever happens, happens. So I'll see you next week when we basically review this whole thing as a whole. Whew. Please don't screw it up. See you next time.